Global warming is the primary environmental concern in the modern world. This paper evaluates whether autonomous vehicles can impact global warming by reducing emissions as a result of reducing traffic congestion, improving fuel efficiency, and shifting to electric vehicles. If all vehicles are electric and powered by solar energy or wind energy, there would be a little emissions of global gases. Exxon, MIT, and the DOE all agree that electric will remain a fringe technology for decades. In my research, I first looked at what was the reason we were moving toward autonomous vehicles, and I found my answer. Our atmosphere cannot take any more damage than what we have already caused it. The emissions we produce from our cars is destroying our ozone layer beyond repair. Autonomous vehicles are contributing to the idea that in the future we will not be harming the Earth, which will allow for our Earth to be more sustainable. The sustainability of our Earth will also be improved because of the improving fuel economy that cars will have in the future. There are several articles that show just how awful global warming is for our Earth, but also how our emissions are in most cases the top causing problem. Some of our largest contributors include Exxon, MIT, and the DOE being the first people to make improvements in the sustainable realm and allow for the rest of the world to move forward with them. Furthermore, recent issues with emissions of the vehicles and conversation about and the states are trying to determine what is a fair amount of emissions to be put into the atmosphere by greenhouse gas emissions, but also the integration of autonomous vehicles into our society and the regulations surrounding them. Specifically with the state of Massachusetts, they have decided that the EPA emissions are too high and not perceptions and the laws surrounding global warming are strongly influenced by public opinion. Referring back to the issue with Massachusetts, the problem is that the public has taken notice of the issues and wants them resolved. However, in other places, the issues are not as important, and people have done nothing to combat them or even consider the issues as to be so prevalent that they need to do something about them. Many other countries have decided the problem of global warming is significant enough and have developed technologies and laws to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The risk associated with global warming in America is not considered as important as it is in other countries. Specifically, Litzerowitz, an author, states that imagery, values, and public response affect the lawmaking. In the United States, the imagery of the effects of global warming is much more preventative in certain areas of the country, namely the East and West Coasts. In other places, the imagery is not presented as frequently, which consequently makes the issue less relevant. Moreover, the author claims that the value of different regions affects the demands for regulation of global warming. For example, in California, they are much more imminent about the danger associated with global warming because it is on a coast and the rising sea levels and other atmospheric issues are starting to be noticed. But in other places where they don't have a coast or there's no water near them, they have decided that they don't feel it is as important. Specifically, companies like Tesla and Toyota with the Prius have come up with the most efficient cars so far on the market, but in California especially, those cars are very popular. Lastly, the most common factor is the public response. In communities where people feel that global warming is a real issue and demand that something be done about it, typically most people are willing to help them and the legislation is passed in those places. But in other places where people are less aware of it or care less, nothing gets passed and therefore there are no new laws surrounding global warming and the issues of autonomous vehicles. Within Japan, CO2 levels are so high that the amount of people driving is the problem, and it's because of the densely populated area. 17% of 1.2 billion tons of emissions released in Japan is just from automobile emissions. The government and the citizens have been considering ways to keep emissions down within their country. I will next evaluate their new system based on what the citizens came up with, which is called an intelligent public transportation system. They created this because of the demand that was expected by the citizens. This is a great example of when the citizens take over the government and decide that the practices being done are not healthy. A society in which global warming and autonomous vehicles has become a prevalent enough issue where people are doing something about it is the Japanese. Japan is currently working on developing the technology for autonomous trains. Japan proposes that autonomous trains can be part of an intelligent public transportation system. Furthermore, Japanese are attempting to reduce or eliminate emissions from vehicles. Outside of the autonomous trains, Japan is also developing a system that keeps cars informed about upcoming conditions and helps them avoid congestion, which would greatly reduce the emissions that are produced. The system would communicate efficient routes for cars to take, which would reduce emissions, especially in gridlock situations. All of the research and planning that has gone to Japanese intelligent transportation system was motivated by the public seeing a problem in the emissions being put into the air, so they decided to do something about it and make it a point to get a new system of transportation. The impact of autonomous vehicles on global warming is a very relevant and pressing topic. Our Earth currently cannot handle the amount of toxins we are emitting with our current system of traveling. The future of autonomous vehicles has a lot to do with the future of our Earth as a whole. As scientists, we make closer advances toward figuring out what will best work for humans and the Earth, but we still are working on the best way to conserve and be functional. In the future, if the public response becomes a higher, solution may come faster. Furthermore, the issue with the emissions of the current vehicles might be reduced even further. In certain parts of the country, autonomous vehicles are being tested and experimented at much higher rates. In other parts of the country, autonomous vehicles are less important, but there is no push from the citizens of that place. The most active state in advancement of autonomous vehicles is currently California.